There's usually not a lot left of a person once they're shot with a shotgun.
A brutal killing.
Blood was everywhere. The carnage, the just brutality. That was the worst scene that I've seen.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
And this case had all the classic elements of sex, money, and even drugs.
That was the killer calling and telling them that the job is done.
He needed to go in there and eliminate these problems in his life so he could have what he always wanted.
I can protect you if you tell me the truth.
I would not lie to you about a murder.
The truth will be revealed.
She knew that she was playing with fire. That's when the fuse was lit.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Springfield, Georgia, personifies the small-town charm of the South.
Springfield is the county seat of Effingham County. It's a quiet little community. It's rural, a lot of farmland.
It only has 2 red lights. That's how small it is. Just a few thousand people.
One hot summer night, violence erupts at one of the county's most respected homes.
In the early morning hours, Effingham Dispatch received a call from a female.
911.
Help, please.
Can I help you? What's wrong?
Gun shot.
You're shot.
Yes,
How did you get shot, ma'am?
I don't know.
It was difficult to make out what she was trying to tell them, but they did pick out a couple of words.
Husband shot 2.
Your husband shot too?
Yes,
Who else is in the house with you?
son.
Your son?
Yes,
Did he get shot too, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Do you know who shot you?
No.
Okay, just stay with me, honey. I got somebody coming to you. Just stay with me, okay?
Upon arrival, deputies locate 58-year-old Linda Height.
When the first responders arrived, they could not believe Linda was even alive. She had taken a shirt and wrapped it around her lower jaw to help stem the flow of blood.
The emergency medical services, they arrived on scene and transported her to a local hospital to immediately get her help. The other 2 individuals in the house, one was Linda's husband, Philip, and a son, Kerry. Both of them had sustained gunshot wounds to the head. It was obvious that no intervention would have saved them.
Investigator Eric Reiner and Assistant District Attorney Michael Muldrew locked down the scene alongside Effingham County Sheriffs.
We knew that this was going to be a very difficult case, that it is going to take tremendous man-hours. The sheriff, knowing that, assessed the situation and called in help, and he called in the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations.
Special Agent Eugene Howard is assigned as the lead.
When I approached the scene and drove onto the road where the Heights family lived, the first thing I realized was the remoteness of the location. It was in a rural location, family dwelling down a dirt road. It wasn't in a public area. Inside the home, I noticed the overwhelming smell of gasoline. We immediately realized that the person who did this was gonna try to set the house on fire, to try to cover up the evidence.
But the crime scene remains intact.
It appeared that the son, Kerry, was shot first. Kerry was in the bedroom to the left. He was shot at close range, and he was shot with what appeared to be a shotgun. You walked down the hallway and you were able to see the father, Philip Height. It appeared that Philip raised up in his bed as a result of hearing the gunshot. Then Philip was shot. Immediately to the right, you see that there was a gunshot through the bathroom door where Linda was shot at.
Shotguns are destructive. They're large barrels, and there's a lot of different metal pellets that come out. There's usually not a lot left of a person once they're shot with a shotgun.
Blood was everywhere. That's, as of today, was the worst scene that I've seen. As far as the carnage, just brutality of the scene, and the sheer will for Linda to live. We wish we could have talked to her, but at that time she was in major surgery in an attempt to save her life.
To find the person who killed Philip Height and his son Kerry and left Linda for dead, investigators will need to reconstruct the last hours of the victims' lives.
What you start thinking about as an investigator is the victimology. Why or what caused this family to be brutally murdered and assaulted? Initially, and from the evidence, it appeared to be a robbery or a break-in. There's a big hunting community in Effingham, so it's not uncommon to have a shotgun. However, there was no shells found at the scene. No person who wanted to come in and rob and shoot had a reason to pick up the shotgun shells, especially if they were gonna set the house on fire. This was different than a random burglary.
There was nothing taken from the house.
Stuff is still there, it's cash.
There were wallets, there was jewelry, there was money and money clips. Truly nothing had been disturbed.
Indication from the scene was that the person went in with the sole intent of killing every soul in the residence.
The apparent targeting of all three Heights in one attack directs them to examine the family history.
Their family's been in this county since its foundation.
Philip Height was well known, extremely well respected. He was connected with a lot of the movers and shakers in South Georgia, and if you wanted to get a real estate deal done, you went to Philip Height.
Philip was the breadwinner. Linda was the homekeeper. She took care of the kids and was the traditional Southern belle and the matriarch. They had 3 sons, Kerry Height, the youngest, Chris Height, the middle child, and Craig Height, the oldest.
Kerry was his daddy's shadow, and he actually worked with him every day in their development company. In a lot of ways, they were 2 peas in a pod.
Kerry was also married to his high school sweetheart, Robin, with whom he had a boy and 2 girls.
They went to notify Robin at her home. They find her there with her children.
She was told about the murders. She was distraught.
Robin tells police Kerry went to his parents' house at approximately 4 p.m. the previous day and had called to say goodnight to the kids at 8:30.
The Heights held family higher than anything else. It was beyond devastating.
There's a lot of emotion in all of this, but your job is to solve the murder. Very difficult questions have to be asked. That's your job. It's not like you like to do it. You have to do it.
She stated that she didn't have any idea who could have done this.
Then she asked, had anyone talked to her brother-in-law yet, referring to Craig.
Police locate Philip and Linda's eldest son.
Craig was actually living in a friend's hunting cabin, which was several miles away.
When we arrived, Craig was upset, just dismay, grief.
He gave a statement. He said he had been at the hunting cabin and that he had gone there earlier in the evening and he had been there all night and that he had not found out about the murders until he was called well on up in the morning.
Investigators get their first real lead.
We found out that Philip's business was in dire straits. He was struggling at that point. Due to the downturn in the economy, a lot of real estate deals were going bust. There were foreclosures left and right.
Billions, if not trillions of dollars was lost in the 2008 financial crisis. Millionaires reduced to paupers. And that leads to a number of people having motive to commit murder.
One of the investigative tracks that would have had to have been investigated was whether money was owed to clients in the business that the father and the son ran.
They might appear successful from the outside, but as in many instances, looks can be deceiving.
Investigators discover the brutal attack on the Height family may be connected to the business Philip and his son Carrie ran together.
There had been some contentiousness between Philip and some of the other people that he worked with in development business and bankers. And we thought that somebody did this to get back at him somehow.
You must investigate creditors or persons that were involved in the business. Is it 10, 20, 30 million dollars at stake? People will do anything for money.
As they start their inquiry, they receive a tip.
This lady in Effingham County received a phone call, and she tells the sheriff that she had received it approximately the same time that she thought that the Height murders were being carried out. She could hardly hear them, but she could hear them say, "The deed is done."
This happened that night, and that's what made the person who received the call think, hey, this might have something to do with the case.
You cannot discount anything at that point. A lot of times, the leads that we get from the community actually result in some good information. So the first thing you do is you get phone records. We interviewed a lot of people that had conducted business with Philip. We searched his real estate business. We toted out boxes of records, searched through all those records. We could not come up with any credible information that would lead us to a motive for the crime. People argue, but it doesn't mean that they're going to kill you. Maybe he did have an exchange of words, but that was not a viable motive for murder.
Philip would not have made any decisions that would have jeopardized himself or his family. He just wasn't one of those type people. He wasn't dealing with the mob. He wasn't borrowing money from loan sharks. He was a hard businessman, but he was a businessman.
Police pore over phone records, finally locating their mystery caller.
It was just a random telephone call in the middle of the night for someone that was doing some repair work at a restaurant. That person called and said, hey, the job is done, and they called the wrong number. It just proved to be just a random telephone call, but it had to be investigated.
They turned their focus to the middle son.
Chris was a successful builder and lived close by Linda and Philip and was a real integral part of the family. He was devastated beyond belief.
Chris tells investigators he was at his parents' house at 4 p.m. when Carrie first arrived.
Chris was in a hurry to get home, feed his children, bathe his children, get ready for their school the next day.
He reported that he was home with his wife that entire night, which was confirmed by his wife.
But Chris does have an idea about where they should go next.
Chris mentioned his father saying to him that he reported something to the local law enforcement.
There was a meth addict down the road that was manufacturing methamphetamine.
Philip called law enforcement and said, hey, this guy is selling meth in our neck of the woods.
He actually went to prison for that.
They thought that maybe this particular person had something to do with the death of Philip and Carrie Height.
Police learned the man, Peter Hoffman, served close to 3 years for possessing and manufacturing methamphetamine.
Crystal meth is a huge problem in the southern United States. And people who have a drug trafficking network will do anything to keep that network. And if you're a crystal meth dealer, you're a bad person, capable of terrible acts. And if you go to jail because somebody ratted you out, and you sit in jail and you stew and stew, in this case, it's entirely plausible that the father had a target on his back.
They determine Hoffman lives just over a mile from the Height home.
You have to track this down. You can collect all this evidence, but until you confront that person, you don't really know how it fits together. You knock on the door, you talk to the guy, and you do an interview.
Hoffman claims he was nowhere near the Height house that evening.
We've all done this for many years, so we get a feeling on whether or not someone is being honest. You can tell if something's off. You speak with them and question them about the evidence that you've collected, and you look at the reaction, and it kind of helps you synthesize this evidence and see if it's actually something that you can use that points to the guilt or innocence of the person. And in that particular case, did not pan out.
It was a very tantalizing rumor, but there was absolutely no evidence that this guy had any ill will towards the Heights when he got out.
Investigators turned back to the scene for more clues.
We noticed that there was a key in the door, and it was a true deadbolt, which means it's keyed on both sides.
Through the family, they learn of a backup key used only for emergencies.
Only a handful of people knew about this secret key that allowed access to the house. It was kept in a utility room off the carport in a special little notch above the door, and it would not be something that even a trained burglar would normally find.
When the garage is searched, that key is missing.
So we knew that that was the key from the secret hiding place.
It would lead me right away as an investigator to believe this was some form of what we'll call an inside job.
Since we had such a small number of people that knew about the key, it had to be somebody that was closely associated with this family and that actually had the intent to commit an execution.
They press the family to identify anyone with knowledge of the key. One name stands out.
There was another particular person that came in interest, and that was John Henry, Robin Heist's brother. It was mentioned to us that, well, John Henry goes onto the property all the time, and he would know where the key was at. John Henry was mentioned by the family because he had personal problems.
And so you have a person of interest who has access to the deceased house. You have to now track the suspect's movements in those 24 hours to figure out whether or not this is the person who did it.
Police have identified family friend John Henry as a person of interest in the Haight murders.
We found out that he was a very, very close friend of Carrie Haight. Carrie got him a lot of jobs. He was a handyman.
This friendship makes Henry's potential motive for murder unclear.
Most murders are committed between people who know each other, and it usually comes down to a factor involving the relationship itself. In these cases where that person either orchestrated or committed the murder, identifying motive, it's not so easy for the detective. You can't have that tunnel vision. You still have to step back and investigate the whole case.
They track down John Henry at his home.
He claimed that he was actually in Charleston, South Carolina for the 1-year anniversary of his marriage, and said they were staying at a nice hotel about 2.5 hours away from Springfield, Georgia.
If he's got an alibi, then typically you tell the police right away you've got an alibi and you provide alibi evidence.
We went to the hotel that he stayed at, picked up information from there, verifying that he was there. John Henry absolutely loved Carrie Haight. After looking into his alibi, learning about his close relationship with Carrie Haight, just wouldn't have been possible for him to have committed this act. He knew about the key, but he didn't do it.
We find evidence and we follow the evidence, and wherever it leads us is where we go. You have a theory, theories change.
Eliminating suspects can often be more important than identifying suspects. The end goal, of course, being that there's one name left.
As you eliminate leads, you're narrowing focus, you're really putting everything into it because you got to run it out. You know, you've got to make sure because it's a person's life. Of course, when something like this happens, it's like a thunderclap. People start looking and are paranoid. They don't know. They think they may be next, you know. Especially in this area of Effingham County, because it still has that small town vibe.
When we're dealing with small town murders, people love to talk. It's not the same as a big city where no one talks. It's the exact opposite.
Rumors were spreading that Robin had been having an affair.
Infidelity in and of itself is relatively common as we can base on the amount of divorces and separations that go on. When an investigator learns that the partner of the deceased had been cheating, that creates a different mindset for the investigator. Infidelity is often part of the motive of someone's death, and it has to be investigated.
When we contacted Robin Haight about it, she was forthcoming with the information. She didn't try to hide the fact that there was an affair.
She said The affair had been going on for some months.
When you start fooling around on your spouse, it's a recipe for disaster, and the chances of it not ending well, vis-a-vis in a murder, are extremely likely.
Believing Carey may have been the main target, they need to determine his wife's whereabouts on the night of the crime.
Robin Height reported that she was at home all night.
There was dozens and dozens of man-hours spent tracking that down and getting cell phone records. Her cell phone was at the house all night long.
Robin never left the residence that night.
But what detectives soon discover changes everything.
She was having an affair with her brother-in-law, Craig.
Allegations of an illicit affair cast suspicion on Philip and Linda's oldest son, Craig.
We asked Craig about his relationship with Robin Height, and he's completely denied any sexual relationship with his sister-in-law. But we knew he was lying about the affair. That was a very crucial moment in the investigation.
He's brought in for further questioning.
We did a hard-hitting interview. He lied about the affair even more. So we scheduled him for a polygraph. He started to change his statements. He told us that he did have an affair.
If someone is caught in a lie by police, they will often change their story afterwards. They will often backpedal. It shines the light on them because they didn't tell the truth in the first place.
Craig's lie opens the door to a shocking suggestion that even for investigators is hard to stomach.
People didn't think there was any way he could shoot his mom. Knowing the community, knowing the status of this family, we knew that we were going to have to leave no stone unturned and no questions unanswered.
After multiple surgeries, the sole survivor of the attack comes to.
The doctors at the hospital could not believe Linda was alive, and everybody just agrees that it's a miracle that she made it.
Linda is pressed for details about her attacker, but the impact of her trauma proves too great.
She did not know who the person was.
They were allowing other family to come in. Chris, her middle son, came in to see her first, and they had a very sweet reunion. As soon as he left, Craig came in. And everyone noticed that the heart monitor started racing. Blood pressure, heart rate, everything skyrocketed. He was just there a couple of minutes and he left. And then her heart went back to normal.
Family members were picking up on the fact that Craig showed visible sickness when he was found out that his mother would make a full recovery.
Craig's mother is unable to provide more information, so Special Agent Howard turns to her middle son, Chris, to see what he knows.
Chris indicated the family was just learning of the affair. This was just tearing his family apart.
For Philip to see the family that he and Linda had nurtured fall apart because of his oldest son's affair with his youngest son's wife, it was beyond devastating.
Chris says the conflict had recently come to a breaking point.
Craig was told an ultimatum that if he did not leave Robin Height alone, and leave Carrie's family alone, that he would be completely removed from Philip's will. At the same time, Carrie was trying to remove Robin from his will.
Wills can tear families apart if the content of the wills are known. If it is disclosed that a person's not included in the will, or one person's getting more than another person, that could be a motive for someone to get very upset and perhaps commit murder.
Amid the denials, Carrie and Philip look for tangible proof of the affair.
Carrie installed a GPS device on Robin's vehicle. And so they knew where she had been going.
On that Saturday and that weekend, Craig and Robin spent the weekend together.
A friend of Philip's, who owned a helicopter, was asked by Philip to fly over this hunting cabin where they suspected Robin was meeting him.
He flew over, took some photographs of them.
Craig came to the immediate conclusion that that was his daddy sending somebody to spy on him.
Craig had been confronted by Philip in the past, and he had denied it. Craig couldn't deny the fact that they were having an affair anymore.
Craig was upset. He knew that everything was coming to an end.
The life that Craig wanted was the life that his brother lived. He wanted his brother's life. He wanted his brother's wife. Conflicts between brothers is as old as the Bible. It's as old as mankind. It's as old as history's itself.
That Sunday, Carrie confronts his wife, Robin.
He says, I'm leaving, I'm filing for a divorce.
Carrie decided to go stay at his mother's house, which was the first time he had stayed there since their marriage.
When Carrie got there, he actually requested Chris to witness his signing of a new will. Chris told him, I don't have time right now, but we'll do it later. And unfortunately, there was no later.
It's compelling circumstantial evidence, but still not enough for an arrest.
The picture of the killer was coming into focus. But there was no physical evidence, no eyewitness, no DNA.
We knew, due to the nature of the crime and the people involved, that we didn't have to not only prove that Craig Hite committed the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, but we also had to prove that no one else committed the crime. That's different from most cases.
They need to place the gun in Craig's hands.
We determined the shotgun type that he used and the shell that he used would cause a mark, would leave a really big bruise.
So they asked Craig, would you mind removing your shirt? And he said that he had an accident getting out of a bathtub the other day, and he got some bruises. He was giving an explanation to a question that nobody was asking. When he pulled the shirt off, there were 2 bruises on this shoulder and 1 bruise on this shoulder. They were consistent with a shotgun being held.
It was the moment that I knew without a doubt that Craig Hite was the shooter.
Investigators believe Craig Hite had the means and the motive. to commit the brutal assault on his family. They now need to solidify the case.
One of the most common misconceptions about murder investigations, for sure, is the need to arrest the killer right away. That's not the case. It's the exact opposite. You're trained to make sure before you lay a charge, you have a reasonable grounds of convicting the person you're charging. You gotta have that evidence first.
We wanted to make sure there were no loose ends when we made that arrest. We knew that we were only going to have one good shot. For Craig Height to have the opportunity to commit this crime, several pieces need to fall into place. Those included for Philip, Linda, and Carrie to be at the same place at the same time with no witnesses around.
They re-interviewed the one person with that knowledge, Carrie's wife, Robin.
He hasn't said to me, I did it, or, my God, if he had told me that he had done it, I would have called you. I mean, honestly, I just did not believe that he would do that, or could do that.
I can protect you, you tell me the truth. You bullshit me, I'm not gonna be able to protect you, but I'm gonna tell you something. If he did do this, and he thinks you told us something, do not think for 1 second that he will not walk up in your house and shoot you in the face just like he did them.
If I knew something, I would have told you that day that you first questioned me. I would not lie to you about a murder.
She provides a critical new detail.
Rob and Craig are in communication with each other that night. And Robin says, you know, Carrie left me.
His opportunity came to fruition when Carrie and Robin had a huge fight that Sunday.
This proves that Craig knew Carrie was with his parents that night. While the evidence against him remains circumstantial, the timeline of that final fateful day shows he was the only one capable of committing the brutal attack.
The spark started when Robin and Craig were confronted about the affair. That's when the fuse was lit. He talked to Robin Height, and he learned that night that Carrie was staying at the family home.
That's when he decided it's what he needed to do. He needed to go in there and eliminate these problems in his life.
He got his shotgun. He goes over to the home. He uses the key to enter the residence. He goes in and he shoots Carrie, point blank, and rushes in to shoot Philip, who's awakened by the sound of the shotgun. Linda, thank God, was not in the bedroom and was in the bathroom. He turns and shoots her as she opens the door. At that time, she's knocked out. He picks up the shotgun shells. He goes out, he gets the gas. He pours gas. As he's going to set the fire, he hears his mother on the phone. At that time, he doesn't know if the local law enforcement will be there in a moment. He doesn't know how long she's been on the phone. He doesn't know if his brother Chris has been called, who is less than a mile away. So he has no other choice but to leave.
Police are now certain of his guilt, but as they prepare to make the arrest, they make a disturbing discovery.
Craig had actually moved into the home of Carrie Height and Robin Height. and began to take over a father figure role. Craig was taking over his brother's life. He was raising his kids, driving his truck, sleeping with his wife. It just was appalling. We received the telephone call that at the end of the school year that Craig and Robin were moving to South Carolina.
On May 22, 2009, 9 months after the murders, Craig Height is arrested.
I truly believe that Craig is a sociopath. That's the only way somebody could commit the crimes that he committed.
When she is informed, Robin has a surprising response.
Initially, Robin didn't believe that he was involved.
I'm telling you, he is the one. You've seen the warrants that killed your husband, his father, and shot his mother.
He just kept saying, I did not do this. I swear to you, I did not do this. And I just believed him.
He really had a lot of control over Robin. But after his arrest and he no longer had control, she became more forthright into their relationship and what all had happened.
Robin's mindset started changing about his possible involvement.
As the trial begins, the family remains divided.
There are some members of the family that want to believe that he was not involved.
Chris never could reconcile the fact that his brother committed these horrific crimes. I truly believe Linda knows that he committed these crimes, but you have to remember that, she's still Craig's mother. She lost one son. She was about to lose another one. No mother would ever want to admit that she raised a son that's capable of doing what Craig did.
The jury ultimately found Craig Height guilty of murdering his father and his brother and brutally attacking his mother.
Craig Height is sentenced to 2 life terms, plus an additional 85 years.
He's essentially going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
You work hard, you put all this effort into a case, and you get the verdict that you're seeking. You do feel good because you felt like justice has been served. But on the flip side of that, you still have a broken family and community that was going to take a long time to heal. Your heart goes out to that family.